the industry is preparing for the introduction of new regulations that will reduce emissions from ships. Is IMO already getting feedback on the regulations, and what can be generally said about the state of preparedness ahead of January 2020?
Actually, we've been discussing these issues for quite a long time. The actual amendments for the sulfur limit were in 2008. So we've known about this for some time, and we've also done a review on the availability of fuel oil, and following that, member states decided to go ahead with the 2020 date. And actually, what's been happening at the IMO, we've been having discussions with all kinds of industry stakeholders. So ISO, industry groups, shipping industry, member states, and we've had this agenda item going for a few years on consistent implementation, and this has all been about supporting the transition on the 1st of January 2020, because that date is a very hard deadline, and we've had to do a lot of work to ensure that it can be fully supported. So it includes things like ensuring that Port State Control have what they need to inspect ships, and ship owners have all the right information, and that they can bunker compliant fuel.
We've heard from some operators and ship owners within the Red Sea that they still don't have access to or suppliers of low sulfur oil. So how are they going to proceed with complying with the new regulations, and are there going to be any exemptions in these specific cases?
Like I said, the 1st of January 2020 is a hard deadline, so there are no exemptions. There is a fuel oil non-availability report, which ship owners can fill in if they can't bunker compliant fuel. However, this is intended for temporary purposes only, and the ship owner should have a plan to bunker compliant fuel. And it will also depend upon the enforcement in that region and the port state in that region, on what action they must take.
In your opinion, what is the better way to comply with these new regulations? Is it scrubbers, or is it low sulfur oil?
IMO doesn't have there aren't any particular regulations at the moment on scrubbers, for example. I mean, it's still something that we're still discussing to fully understand the impacts, but both from scientifically but also politically as well.
Thank you. There is an ongoing debate on two proposed mandates to limit ships' cruising speed and to limit their propulsion power. Can you share your thoughts on this?
Limiting propulsion power is something actually it's been discussed with in the context of the EEDI regulation for quite a while now, since 2011. So there is a concern about if you have less installed power, you have less power to maneuver the ship, or if you're in bad weather, you have less power. So it is a legitimate concern. What actually member states are discussing at the moment is having a shaft power limit device that you can turn off when you need the extra power. This is still under discussion, but it's kind of how at the moment member states are trying to balance the need for when you need power with the need to reduce energy use from ships.
Is the 2050 goal of reducing GHG emissions by at least 50% attainable? And can the exact extent of these reductions that would be necessary to improve climate conditions be quantified at all?
So it is all attainable, but to get those really high savings, you do have to start looking at alternative fuels. And this is something that member states do have in the initial strategy. There is an understanding that you start to have to look for alternative fuels to get the really high CO2 reductions. You can use efficiency measures. You might do things like waste heat recovery or e-cells or something like that. But the savings are more limited than actually changing the fuel for lower carbon fuel. So that's why these issues are being discussed.
Thank you very much.